The big idea is kind of the umbrella that goes over everything. But a big idea can be part of the hook, can be part of the big promise. It can be across, it kind of like, it's like the umbrella policy that's over everything. A big idea also oftentimes is really effective if it's a contrarian idea, if it challenges the status quo, if it's like, we've called it an aha type of moment, internally. And so, the big idea is something that people can also like latch onto as part of their belief system oftentimes.
So after $375 million in ad spend on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube ads over the last several years in hundreds of industries, what I've found, and this really is especially the case recently with all the recent changes with some of the targeting being removed on Facebook and some of the targeting being removed coming up on YouTube and Google as well, is it's all about having a big idea around a campaign, having a better ad hook. But a lot of times, if you have a great big idea, then you can create multiple ad hooks. And in this video, I take you guys through how to create a great big idea for your business and for your overall ad campaign. So watch the rest of the video. I think you'll like it.
1. The big idea. 2. The big promise. 3. Specific claims. And 4. Proof of those claims. The big idea. Much has been written about the concept of the big idea, and we will talk more about it in later chapters. For the purposes of this discussion, let's say that the big idea is the main idea you use to sell your product. The big idea should come from the USP, but it is not the same thing as the USP. The USP applies to your product. The big idea applies to the marketing promotion, the particular sales effort you are creating with a copywriter. In the case of our inspirational website, the USP is that it is the only inspirational website based on the teachings of Confucius. But you can't use that for a headline in your ads. You need something more arresting and compelling. So you look for an idea, preferably an idea that is big enough to sustain not just a single ad, but an entire advertising campaign.
So you see what we're starting to do here, and I'm going to map these out a little bit on the whiteboard in a second. But it can be confusing because you have a lot of people like me and any other marketer out there throwing out these terms a lot. But there's a lot of cases where, like this one here, oil changes for life. This one here is the USP, right? So it's a car dealership. It's a Chevrolet dealership. And for them, a big reason to get people to keep coming back to the dealership is to give them free oil changes, because now they're waiting in the waiting room for their oil to get changed and they're talking to a salesperson. It's a reason to come in for new customers, right? It's like a tripwire, but it's free. It's like a free lead magnet. So it is a USP in general, but guess what? It's also a big idea and a hook. Like this one here is sort of all three, right? And you'll see that once in a while. But in most cases, you won't.
So the big idea is kind of the umbrella that goes over everything. But a big idea can be part of the hook, can be part of the big promise. It can be across, it kind of like, it's like the umbrella policy that's over everything. A big idea also oftentimes is really effective if it's a contrarian idea, if it challenges the status quo, if it's like, we've called it an aha type of moment, internally. And so, the big idea is something that people can also like latch onto as part of their belief system oftentimes. The hook, well, the marketing hook for us is typically the beginning of something, and so it's a tagline, it's the first part of an ad, it's the first part of a video, and it's the thing that, again, like pulls people in. Some of that contrarian ideology around the big idea is oftentimes a good hook. Like you use the example of, is breakfast the most important meal of the day, or is it the meal that everyone should skip? Things like that can be good hooks, but also just big ideas on their own can be interesting hooks. And so a hook is like the thing that pulls people in. It's that reason that people will stop when they're walking by a group of people talking at the party or whatever, and kind of be like, oh, what are they? They're talking about something that lies to me, something that's interesting to me, and something that has a really quick kind of snap to it. Then the big promise is part of kind of the offer, that it's kind of the solution in some ways. And so if we're looking at USPs, I think one thing that people oftentimes come to me and ask me about when we're talking about unique mechanisms or USPs, let's just call it unique mechanisms, because that's what I like to usually call it.
Yeah.
Unique mechanism can be the solution. It can be the big promise if you productize it. Like, if you're selling a very specific product, or your program is called, the piano foundation formula.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. That can be the unique mechanism. But what we often like to do, and this might go to what what Aaron was talking with John's stuff at the beginning of the call, but when you start, listing out, when you start brainstorming big ideas, okay, this is the big idea, this is the big promise, this is the solution that comes from that big promise, and this unique mechanism is part of that solution. And you can start to kind of bolt all these things together. It becomes really fun. And then when you're writing your ads, you can play around with all these kind of Legos like Keith talks about. And so I think where people can really get caught in the muck here is trying to think, is this a USP or is it a unique mechanism or is it a big idea? I think you have to give yourself some grace and be like, it doesn't really matter. A big idea can be a solution. A USP can be a solution. A big promise can be your hook. All of those things can happen. It's kind of this crazy crossover. So don't get too caught up on the definitions of these things, but just understand, I'm going to write down some big ideas. It's okay if they're also hooks or unique mechanisms or whatever. I'm going to write down some unique mechanisms. Unique mechanisms oftentimes do sound like the 10X system or the 3-pillar master cleanse or whatever it might be. Just to consider that those like really kind of cool US like intellectual property sounding things, like if you can really have fun with those oftentimes, and that's just part of what makes your solution work, but it's the unique part that everyone else can have, these different pieces. And then one last thing I would say.
Hey, Keith here, quick interruption. If you like this video, if it's helpful, if you're having any aha moments, we appreciate it if you just let us know. Give us a thumbs up, thumbs down if you don't like it, share it, comment, ask us any questions you have. It really does help us as well. And it sends a signal to the algorithm that this video is valuable. So if you do that, we appreciate it. And as I hope you appreciate the content that you're learning right now. All right. So let's get back to the video.
Is it, and I might be jumping the gun here, Keith, if I am, I'm sorry, but think about your market sophistication too. Like when's the right time to talk about something like a unique mechanism? It's not when you have this blue ocean, you're just introducing this cool new thing to the market, because at that point, everything is kind of a unique mechanism. It's more when you have a lot of competition. There's a lot of people like for, Keith, he's selling, how to do, marketing. There's a lot of people who are selling how to do marketing and how to do Facebook ads successfully, but the everlasting ad is something that is a unique mechanism that makes Keith's program work better than all the other guys. So when you're trying to separate yourself from a market sophistication level from everybody else, that's when it's really important to insert like your unique mechanism potentially into your hook. How my everlasting ad formula helps marketers go from A to B without dealing with XYZ. That's where like the unique mechanism kind of becomes the star, is when you're really trying to set yourself apart from all these other people. I like to start with the big idea, then the big promise and the solution come from that, and that's part of the pain that we're solving. And then the hook and the offer come from that. The USP is part of the solution as well. And so it's kind of like this recipe that you're putting together. And so again, I know I've just thrown a lot of stuff at everybody, but I would just tell everybody, if you take anything away from what I just said, give yourself grace not to figure out, is this just, a definition of this or just a definition of that? All these things are part of it. And if you can't just brainstorm all of those, you'll come up with some really great marketing ideas, which will get you better hooks, better USPs, better unique mechanisms. And then you just go out, and the cool thing about what we do is you just go out and test them, and people will tell you what they need.